The search continues for answers, real, factually based answers, on why 49 people were murdered Sunday morning in Orlando, Florida, and so many young lives and those of their friends and family were shattered forever. The initial reports led us to consider that always present possibility of radical Islamic terror, which, whether right or wrong, good or bad, is often the default mode we fall into when such incidents occur, something for which we cannot blame ourselves, especially when we consider what has happened here in America. The black cloud that has hovered over France for many months, the seemingly never-ending images of Islamic radicals cutting off the heads of gays, using children as suicide bombers, and using women as little more than chattel and animal stock. There are reasons why we jump to radical Islamic terror when such things happen, but there has to be a caveat among intelligent, thinking, rational people using common sense. Jumping to such immediate conclusions can backfire, as it may in this case. There is growing evidence this was not ISIS-controlled, instead a mentally deranged individual seeking fame and death. And it has once again brought to the fore the profiling of Muslims, all Muslims, as inherently bad and dangerous. If we do not strike a balance, the scales of hate could tip in favor of ISIS and their ilk, and we could well lose this war. Get on the line right now. Be a part of the conversation with your comments at 1-877-Newsmax, 1-877-639-7629. Our guest is a great friend of the show, professor of Middle East Studies at Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, Florida, and the author of Salafism in Lebanon, From Apoliticism to Transnational Jihadism. And weeks before the Orlando shootings, he wrote an intelligent article that speaks precisely to this subject. Welcome, Professor Robert Rabil, back to the Hard Line.
Thank you, Ed, and
always
thank you
a pleasure,
for inviting
my friend.
me. It's my pleasure and honor. Thank you.
You did this on May 25th. You
Yes.
wrote this, published on the National Interest, and the title said it. Profiling Muslims is bad, so is ignoring radical Islam. Let's take the first half of that.
Yes.
Profiling Muslims.
Yes.
But it happens. It happened from political candidates. It happens from people on social media. They immediately profile. How do we get it through to people of all ages, all types, that it doesn't work?
Well, you are absolutely right. It doesn't work. Profiling is bad. But what you can do is that you go ahead and monitor the actions. Action speaks louder than anything else. What do I mean actions? What they say, what they do. And there is someone
what the
always,
criminals do, what the
of
people
course, what
do.
the radical, what
Right.
the radical, and mostly those who are moving toward radicalism, what they are saying, how they are behaving, how their behavior, the pattern of their behavior. And this is something the family could say, their neighbors could say, and of course their co-workers could say. So this is why I say profiling is bad. You cannot profile a community. You know, the Muslim community is large, really, so you cannot profile it. But what you can do is that you can create some kind of a context where if you can see something that is out of place, then it is out of place, and then you inform the authority, and the authority will take it over from there.
But people say, and you've heard this, we've talked about this before,
Yes.
they will go right back and say that the Quran preaches violence. And
Okay.
these people are immediately told that it is more than an eye for an eye, and they must take violence into their own hands.
All right, there is something about the Quran. Quran as a holy scripture, similar to other holy scripture, you have indeed certain controversial verses. But overall, you have others. They are not controversial and they are peaceful. So mainly, don't focus on those verses that are controversial verses. And this is where, as a matter of fact, the effort of the imams, the effort of the spiritual leaders, the effort of the leaders in the community to go ahead and make sure they discredit that ideology of radical Islam from Salafism and how it branches out, you know, which is extremely important, Ed.
So then let's get to that.
Please.
Donald Trump has once again said today that he is in favor of surveillance of mosques.
Yes.
And there are many people who say that you must know what's happening in the mosques because that's where the evil comes from.
Okay.
How are we then supposed to take... Well, first of all, let's look at it from the imam's side of things.
Yes.
We don't ask priests in this country to tell us about
Correct.
people who confess to them. We don't tell rabbis to tell us. How do we then tell imams who are religious figures,
Yes.
leaders, that they must tell us what goes on in their mosque because it's good for American security?
Well, you are on the mark very much, but I have a different tack myself. What you do is that you deepen, you enhance the outreach to the Muslim community, especially to the imams. And what do I mean by that? This is where we need to have a concerted effort, us, but mainly led by the Muslims. And what I mean Muslim spiritual leader, Muslim, community leaders, to come and inculcate within the Muslim community that this radical ideology is not does not belong to us. This radical ideology that tries to empower you, it's wrong, it's false. So mainly we can work in this outreach to go ahead and let them do the heavy lifting mainly. Listen, I want to tell you
Do
one
they
thing.
want to do the heavy lifting?
Well, this is up to them, and I think many of them, yes. Because now it's extremely important, and they know and they feel it. Listen, I am a professor, I have students, I have my colleagues, some of them are Muslims, and they are really extremely upset about what's happening. And I believe that, some of them, they are more outspoken than others. So what we need is that they need to take the effort to make sure to discredit that radical ideology. That radical ideology, they should say, it does not empower you. It does exactly the opposite.
If you want to join us, 1-877-Newsmax, 1-877-Newsmax. Few minutes we have. Get on the line now. Please join us. Let's not ignore, though, the second part of your article.
Okay.
Profiling Muslims is bad, so is ignoring
Exactly.
radical Islam.
Absolutely.
People talk about just using the words. You must say radical Islamic terror. You've got to get it out there. Do you really think that makes a difference? To
Yeah,
keep
of course
saying the
it
word
may.
over and over again?
Well, I heard what the president said, and I disagree with him. As a matter of fact, you have to set the narrative straight. It is a narrative, and you have to explain it. How are you going to explain it? On what ground? On extremism? No, you have religious extremism, and that religious extremism is Islamic extremism, and this is what is radical Islam. You have what I call myself in the article and in my book and my research, Ed, what I call it is a triumphalist ideology. It's an ideology that doesn't expect anyone to go ahead and somehow impose any authority over it. It wants to impose its authority on everything. And this is why it's very difficult to coexist with this ideology. And this is where you need to call it what it is. It is a triumphalist, it is a radical Islamic ideology. Now, there is a big difference between radical Muslim and Muslim. So I focus on the radical Muslim. So when you take, it's not radical Islam, how I'm going to explain it? How I'm going to explain it to my children? How I'm going to explain it so as to take some kind of an effort to go ahead and discredit it? How you are going to discredit an ideology if you are not going to call it by what it is?
Let me grab a couple of phone calls here again. I'm going to ask everybody, please be very brief in your comments. Give us 30 seconds, please, so we can try and get everybody in here. Kathy in Flemington, New Jersey, you believe that it is up to the Muslim community to denounce terrorism. Please explain. 30 seconds.
Yes, I believe that they should go ahead and be able to come forward with the information when they see that people among themselves that are radical Islamics and that can be terrorists. And then maybe they would gain the trust of more Americans. But because they haven't, that's why there's profiling. That's why there's the things that occur.
Aren't we talking, though, Kathy, I appreciate your comments very much. We have to move on. Aren't we talking about trust in here? And that's a big part of it. Because isn't it fair to say that neither side trusts each other right now? The imams themselves, the Muslim community doesn't trust Americans in many ways, at least because of the politics right now. And many people in America don't trust the Muslims to get something done.
Well, I don't see it this way. I see that our authorities, mainly from the FBI to the Homeland Security, already they are engaging the Muslim community. And a good part of the Muslim community, they are very much working. Why? Because we hear as to what happened. You don't hear of what did we foil in terror attacks. And this is where, it has worked. But she has a point, and that point is that, and I was happy to see the Imam in Orlando came out and spoke strongly. So yes, I agree with the lady in that you need more of these Imams, not only to condemn in the streets, but also within the wall of their mosque.
They need to get involved. Vince is in Ocala, Florida. Vince, 30 seconds, please. You're talking about surveillance. Go ahead.
Well, I just called to say that Donald Trump's slogan, "An army of one," describes him to a T. That poor man is fighting this war by himself, and I don't want to really get into anything.
Okay, please stay on topic here, Vince. We understand that you wanted to comment on surveillance is necessary. Is that what you wanted to say?
Surveillance. Profiling is very necessary. That's intelligence. We profiled when I was a kid in our neighborhoods, and our sisters could walk the streets any time of the night. But now we're not allowed anymore. They're taking away our intelligence.
Okay, thank you very much for the call. Let's get one more. Frank in Los Angeles, California. Frank, I have 30 seconds. Please be brief. You say we need to surveil the mosques. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I'm a psychologist. I'm a doctor. I've had two lifelong Muslim doctors, friends of mine, and who are religious, go to their mosques, and just to be 30 seconds talks fast. In the last 10 years, they both told me that they've had to switch mosques 1, 2 times, 3 times because of just what the imams were telling the people attending the
Okay,
services.
we appreciate your comments very much. We're all out of time. 10 seconds. Are we getting any closer to bridging this gulf here?
Well, we are taking now, I think, first step in the right direction. And today I read the bulletin that came out from the Homeland Security. We are increasing our security measures. We are deepening our outreach to all communities. They are telling us what to do and not to do. So indeed, we are making a step in the first direction. And let me say something, since he mentioned Trump and the other with the candidates. Some things that Trump he did is that he somehow compelled Clinton to mention, jihadism, which is good, I think.
The book, once again, is Salafism in Lebanon. Learn about how all this got started. Professor Robert Rabil, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll continue.